Hello and welcome back to the Shed Geek Podcast. Here's a message from our studio sponsor. Let's be real. Running a shed business today isn't just about building great sheds. The industry is changing fast. We're all feeling the squeeze, competing for fewer buyers while expectations keep climbing. And yet, I hear from many of you that you are still juggling spreadsheets, clunky software, or disconnected systems. You're spending more time managing chaos than actually growing your business. That's why I want to talk to you about our studio sponsor, ShedPro. If you're not already using them, I really think you should check them out. ShedPro combines your 3D configurator, point of sale, RTO contracts, inventory, deliveries, and dealer tools all in one platform. They even integrate cleanly into our Shed Geek marketing solutions. From website lead to final delivery, you can quote, contract, collect payment, and schedule delivery in one clean workflow. No more double entries, no more back and forth chaos. Quoting is faster, orders are cleaner. And instead of chasing down paperwork, you're actually running your business. And if you mention Shed Geek, you'll get 25% off all setup fees. Check it out at shedpro.co/ShedGeek. Thank you, ShedPro, for being our studio sponsor, and honestly, for building something that helps the industry. Okay, welcome back to another episode of the Shed Geek Podcast. For those of you who are watching today, I hope you enjoy this. We've had the opportunities to do podcasting in some pretty interesting spaces, and we're in a professional podcast room today, which is really, really awesome. Soundproof, and it hears everything with these Omni mics instead of the mics that I have. Maybe one day, I'll have a room like this somewhere podcasting. But thank you guys for listening. We're still here in Florida, sunny Florida, right before the catastrophe hits here in the lower states of the ice and snow that we're going to try and get through getting home. Got to go to Gainesville. Thank you guys for listening. As always, please check us out at shedgeek.com. Subscribe to the newsletter and check us out on the Shed Sales Professionals page. Be a part of our environment and contribute to the industry, leaving it better than you found it, hopefully. Welcome a old friend to the show. You guys know him, the man, the myth, the legend, Jim Mosier.
Hey, welcome to Lakeland. First of all, welcome to Lakeland, Florida.
Love it already.
Yes. I hope you got a decent tour, but next time you come, we'll stay an extra day, and we'll make sure you get the full tour. Headquarters of Publix supermarkets. I don't know if you knew that or not.
I did not know that.
This is where they were founded. This is where their headquarters is. Yeah.
Well, I'm not just a shed geek. I'm a bit of a data geek, right? But the data is different, Jim. I like weird things. I like to know what makes up a city, what's its history, who are notable people from it in different areas of politics to sports to music and culture. So I look all this stuff up usually when I come here, and Lakeland is one of the fastest growing places as a matter of fact, it says it's the number one fastest growing city in Florida, at least from the data that I pulled.
Yeah, I'd like to think I'm a trendsetter because I moved here about 20 years ago.
Nice.
It's been a journey, but yeah, Lakeland's got a lot of cool history. One of my favorite stories about Lakeland, you've probably heard of a little guy named George Jones.
Oh yeah,
yeah, he had a house here, and he is famous for getting a DUI on his lawnmower.
That was
because
here.
they took his driver's license away, and he drove his lawnmower to the bar. So
I've watched the video on YouTube several times.
That was here in Lakeland, Florida.
That was here. I'll tell you a funny story about George Jones is I used to work at a casino. I think I've told people that, years ago. And he pulled up to the valet lot one day, and his license plate said no show. And I find out I was off that day, so I wasn't working at the casino. I was over the hotel, so we managed also the valet staff. He pulled up and went to the casino. This is a couple years before he died. And one of my favorite musicians all time, George Jones. Love him. But he pulls up, and the valet driver says, "What's your last name, sir?" Doesn't recognize him. And he said, "Jones." And he's like what? And he's like, had to write down the plates. And he's like, no show. He's not putting it together. Like what he's notorious for. And he's like, well, I'm George Jones, country singer. And my buddy says, you do look a lot like that guy. It's like, he is that guy.
Yeah.
He goes in, comes out, and everybody finds out the next day George Jones was there, and no one recognized him.
That's probably the way he liked it.
I'm
I
sure.
would have to guess. I know just from what I've heard of other celebrities and things like that, that people tend to like to be incognito when they're out and about in the public. Then again, I imagine there's those that like to be recognized.
Sure. Well, I got a cool story about a country musician coming up. Hopefully, he's going to be on the podcast. I don't want to go into too great a detail, but basically, Chris McDaniels, the former keyboardist for Confederate Railroad of the '90s country music band, does a lot of work in prison ministry, celebrate recovery, and addiction recovery. And like me and him have connected through a mutual friend. I knew he was friends with him for years, but we actually connected when I went to like a men's retreat recently, and it's just been really cool. So I'm trying to go down to Dalton to see him next week and spend some time with him, and who knows where that'll go from there. But yeah, we're this reminds me of another story, and we're going to get somewhere eventually, guys, on this podcast. I never will forget me and Jim Coleman and Kyle Summers flying down to Gainesville, and Jim was like being Jim and hilarious, and he's like telling the pilot as we're flying in, he's like, "So you guys ever get any like famous people fly in?" And he's like, these guys are famous, making a joke between me and Kyle on being shed geeks. Uh-huh. And he's like, and we're like, stop it, quit it. These people don't know who we are. No one knows who we are. I like to tell people that, like, if you tell people outside the shed industry, they don't care who the shed geek is. But if you tell them inside the shed industry, they care even less, So,
I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true.
So I tell him, he says, well, last week, we had such and such flying. Oh, and then we had like, Garth Brooks flew in last week, and we were like, so nobody famous really is what you're saying. It's just us.
Oh boy. I'm sure Garth loves that. Do you think Garth listens to podcasts? Do you think he's...
I bet you he doesn't listen to mine. I promise you that. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us. Obviously, Jim Mosier is a big name for me. Getting to meet you in the shed industry, knowing what you do in your marketing capacity, knowing what you do in like your if I can call you a tech geek, if I can call you a data geek, or whatever it is that you are, you have been you wrote the book on literally shed marketing. You have a new book out now I want to talk about, but tell me what's been happening in your life. What's happening in your world?
Oh, wow. So a 30-second roundup, or maybe a minute. I don't know. I talk a lot. When we were doing the shows and we were traveling all over the country, the different shed shows and doing the different activities, we had a home base here in Lakeland, Florida. And it was kind of an interesting dynamic after COVID and all of that kind of stuff. We had a bunch of employees that were working in the office, and during COVID, obviously, they had to go home, start working remotely. And I had an interesting problem. Nobody wanted to come back. So our office transitioned from kind of a 2,000 square foot facility that housed 7 people in-house and the whole bit down to, well, where we're at today, which is a co-working facility called Cohatch. Shameless plug there. They're great. They're based out of Ohio, actually, and they've expanded down to Florida. But as you can see, they've got podcast facilities. They've got all kinds of cool stuff in the building. We've got a couple of dedicated offices here. And all of our team has gone remote, and that was a move that, me being just like, I always wanted to be the local number one employer and the whole bit, best places to work, and all of that.
Yeah.
And when nobody really wants to leave their house, that was an issue. So. And the other thing is that the pool of talent in Lakeland, Florida, isn't like a Austin, Texas, or it's not like one of the big cities where there's tons and tons of experienced help. So now we're here, and we've got a completely remote team, and that's been awesome. We've also transitioned a little bit. So before, like when I wrote Selling Sheds Online, that book was completely 100% about marketing. So we have a new little game in town, AI. And that's kind of been a focus of mine for the last couple of years. That we've developed a lot of really cool systems. We've gotten into software development, and we're doing a lot of kind of off the wall things. I've always considered myself a systems guy, right? Mm-hmm. So a marketing system is a system, a speed to lead system, getting somebody on the phone within 30 seconds to a minute after they fill out a form or something like that. those kind of systems, that's what really drives my brain. I mean, that's where I feel like I have the ability to engineer something that doesn't exist, and that's sort of kind of why, as I'm not getting any younger, I decided, you know what, I'm just gonna stop being so rigid about what it is that we offer, and stop trying to be in this box. And interestingly enough, the shed marketing industry, as I'm sitting here across from Shannon, the shed marketing industry's changed a little bit. Like there was, when I first started going to shed expos and things like that, I believe there was us, I think unpack marketing was there, and maybe Wide Up. And then the last show that we actually attended, I think, was in 23.
There was only 50 at this last show.
Yeah, I mean, and there were so many of them, and it's interesting that every single one of them has a little bit different value proposition, and every single one of them has a little bit different angle, if you will. Ours was that we just, when we became Shed Marketer, we just solely focused on the shed industry, which it worked well for us. It worked well for us, but we, through changes, business evolves, things evolve, and we still love the shed industry. We still have clients in the shed industry, but my natural pursuits led me to AI, led me back into software development and creating systems. We've done some really cool work in that category. Hopefully, we'll have time to talk about. But
this episode is brought to you by ShedSuite, the complete shed business management software. From inventory and quoting to e-commerce and delivery scheduling, ShedSuite keeps your whole operation running smoothly. Today, leading shed businesses are focusing on digital marketing and building their online presence because that's where the customers are. That's why ShedSuite now offers full-service marketing. Everything from ads, social media, and SEO to stunning websites, branding, video, and even photography. The best part? Your website pulls straight from your ShedSuite inventory. Update it once in ShedSuite and it's live. No more managing two systems like with WordPress or WooCommerce. Ready to grow? Go to ShedSuiteServices.com to learn more and schedule a call. Let's grow together.
No, I'd love to. Yeah, obviously marketing in like a generalization is like, it could become a big conversation. We were approached by a very large manufacturer that wanted to white label a agency and they work with like one of the largest wood providers in the space, and along with several other like huge names. And maybe that would have been the better approach to take for us. I just didn't know them, but were obviously successful and probably still are. And it was probably a misstep on my. So we thought about it. We've had CPAs reach out to us, people who want to provide services in the industry, and they want to like use sort of our trusted brand, if you want to call it that, to like sort of navigate those opportunities. And that's great because for me, it keeps the show going, which is my love. My love's not CPA. My love's not marketing. My love's not rent-own. My love's not finance.
Wait, you don't love marketing?
I mean, I don't love it. I think that it's necessary, and I think we all do it regardless of whether we love it or hate it. I think it's part of who we are, even culturally. If you step into a different culture, you sometimes unknowingly market. I always say that the Amish and plain communities market sometimes accidentally. People begin to know them for their craftsmanship, so then they talk about their craftsmanship. If you actually talk to most Amish companies, they will say, "I would rather not put on my brochure Amish craftsmanship." But if you do, it's up to you. But like, we don't want to be seen as like braggadocious, if you will, or you know what I mean. Like, we're not trying to like point toward us. We're trying to point toward God, and like. So I get it, but then it creates these whole conversations, right?
Yeah, but I understand that. But people search for Amish craftsmanship. People search for Amish sheds. They search for that. And if they're searching for that, you've got to be talking about it. Because if you're not talking about it, then nobody knows Google doesn't know you do it. AI doesn't know you do it. I mean, you're not going to get recommendations from all of the different places people could be searching.
Yeah.
If you're not out there talking about it.
And there is just a mindset that says, we won't like talk about ourselves. We won't brag about ourselves because, which is dishonor to God to not give him the correct attribution, to like where our gifts come from. But me and you feel the same way. Like the gifts come from the Lord. We know that. Even any talents, opportunities we get, we give those. But it's just a difference in culture. But marketing for me is like this big ambiguous word, especially in the shed industry. Because what does marketing mean? Like, you got marketing at its natural level, or the natural definition in any capacity. But in the shed industry, you get into the more intricate details like 3D configurator, not just website, but now how are those leads happening, captured, attributed, followed up on, CRMs. Then when you get a good CRM system, if people aren't following up, you start asking yourself, like, should I just follow up with these people? I could probably sell more, or I could at least help. Now I need a Salesforce now. And so like, I always like to joke and say the leg bone's connected to the knee bone and the knee bone's connected to the, whatever. What's that way in marketing? Some people start 3D configurators and like people say, I want one. And it's like, cool, where's your website? And they're like, we don't have a website. Like, oh, well, we got to build websites then, and it's like, so, and then you get into point of sale. Mm-hmm. And now you get into rent-own, and you're like, why rent-own? That's a separate service. And you're like, well, because rent-own's paying for a lot of these services. Mm-hmm. And that's a value proposition, perfectly valid. But you don't know where the color fades. You ever look at a color chart at Lowe's?
Yeah.
And then you start just looking from left to right, and you see how you get from like this really like light white to this really dark white. But it's because all these things overlap from left to right, and you go through 15 colors to get there. But if you don't notice the difference as you watch it that way, whereas if you go straight from left to right, big difference. And to me, that's what marketing in the shed industry is. Who does what? How do they do it? And where are they going? What do they want to do?
Yeah. I mean, when I wrote Selling Sheds Online, and believe it or not, a lot of the strategies that were in that book are basic strategies that are still good today, even in today's world of AI and all of that kind of stuff. But I mean, it starts out with, in general, the first thing you need to do when you open your doors, you need somebody to know you're there, right? Mm-hmm. And so visibility is generally the first thing we help people tackle. Like let's just say that you're a dealer and you've got 5 shed lots scattered around town, but you go to Google and you say sheds for sale near me, and your lots aren't the ones that are showing up. Those are fundamental problems, and they're easy solutions to fix things like that. But you really have to kind of take a look at where you are, where your competitors are, and how do you bridge the gap? How do you get from here to there? Sometimes it's just as simple as going out and getting more reviews. Sometimes it's as simple as posting more pictures. Sometimes, I mean, it can be different for everybody. There's not like the one size fits all solution. I mean, the management practice of actually keeping somebody on the map and expanding their area and stuff like that. There's obviously things that you can do to help in that effort. But for the most part, it's just that local visibility is really where I still recommend everybody starts, because that's the cheapest way that you can market online. Like your Google business profile costs you $0. Yeah. Is nothing.
You're big on LSAs.
Well, LSAs are more for service businesses. I haven't seen a lot of LSAs for sheds. For potentially shed moving, that could be something that could become an LSA, because it's a service. But generally, LSAs are going to be, well, the name LSA, local service ads. So it's generally going to be a service type business. But we're good. We're big in Google Ads. We're big into organic Google search, and now we're into both AI generated content and AI assisted marketing. When I say AI assisted marketing, I'm talking about things like voice AI. Voice AI is a new one that people love it or hate it. There's like no in between. There's nobody that says, I did this voice AI thing and it was okay. And it really comes down to the training, which that kind of leads into that second book that I wrote, AI Without the Hype. And I don't know if you read the subtitle on that book.
I haven't yet, but you did give me one on this morning, so I'm going to brag about that. He's not just going to give them away to everybody, or at least I don't know if he is or not, but I did get, and I got to get you to sign it. I got one of these unique books, and I'm going to go home and read it because I am a reader. I love the term leaders are readers. I don't know. I'm a reader, but hopefully I can find leadership in that. But tell me about it. Tell me about the book. Tell me about what you've been doing and Mosier Data.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, there's a lot of AI hype everywhere, and you hear all over the news. They're talking about there's an AI bubble that's about to burst and all that kind of stuff. I don't really get into all of that, but I do know the practical applications for the different tools that we have out there, right? And AI voice is something that I was very slow to adapt it, but we actually, at Mosier Data, we actually turned on AI voice back in June of last year. And for about the first 120 days, we monitored it. Like, I literally listened to every single phone call, figured out what it had right, what it got wrong, what questions came up, and all of that. And then we build knowledge on top of that. And that's really the process that you need to follow. And AI Without the Hype was written in a lot of the same ways as Selling Sheds Online was. When I wrote Selling Sheds Online, I really wanted to help people that I mean, as an agency, when you're charging a couple $1,000s a month to do services for somebody, there's a barrier of entry there. So
Right.
like, there's certain people that can't afford it. So I wrote Selling Sheds Online just to share the knowledge of, hey, these are the basics for getting yourself out there locally.
Right.
These are the basics for doing pay-per-click, and these are the keywords you need to focus on, and this is why negative keywords are important, and this is what they are. And all of the basic knowledge that somebody would need to know, even if it's not necessarily for them to do themselves, but for them to have the knowledge when they're interviewing a marketing company. I mean, if you're talking to a marketing company and they're not talking about conversions and leads, they're talking about clicks and traffic, then you might not have the right match with that marketing company. I mean, it's up to you. Obviously, everything's a personal decision, but I tend to focus on metrics that matter. So AI Without the Hype is kind of the same guise. There's a lot of hype about AI. There's so many pieces of software out there that are being billed as the next best thing. And it's like, this AI tool will do this and this AI tool will do that. And if you're not careful, you're going to wind up with $900 a month in software subscriptions for stuff that you might use once a month. And I just started seeing that there were a lot of entrepreneurs. You got to love the internet, right? And I'm not throwing shade on anybody for having a thing, right? But people would go out and they would determine, okay, well, listen, if I consistently feed ChatGPT this prompt with this user input, then I'll always get this kind of output. So what I did is I just put a pretty interface on this, and now I'm calling it a software as a service, when in reality it's just a ChatGPT prompt that anybody could put in there. And so I started seeing a lot of that. And then more recently, since the AI Without the Hype book has come out, vibe coding has been the big thing. Everybody's like, oh yeah, go out to Claude Code and have it create your whatever. Well, there's a whole nother discussion about security and things like that come with that. So AI Without the Hype is really just to kind of reset and say, okay, this is what AI is. There's a chapter in there that talks about what a large language model is. So LLM, like your ChatGPT and your Claude, the chat interface that you go back and forth with these tools with. The large language model that powers that, the machine learning that's behind even that. And then there's agentic AI, which is when AI can actually do something, such as picking up the phone and calling somebody 30 seconds after they fill out a form on your website. Which, by the way, if you're not doing that, I really would suggest you experiment with it. Even if you just don't believe me and you hate the idea, I would say throw it at 25% of your calls for 3 weeks straight and tell me what 25% of your leads for 3 weeks straight, and then tell me that it didn't do something for you.
No, thinking about the dealer model, and how that's affected. My ring's going off. Sorry. Thinking about the dealer model and that whenever you put Selling Sheds on, I mean, I guess I handed 50 of these books out. Even after meeting you at the show, talking with you, interviewing you, and just love the idea of it and that barrier to entry that you were talking about. I've always said that 5 to 15 million, I feel like, in revenue, they are the companies that are poised because they have the best opportunity to have an effect actually on larger players because they can make a difference they can move the needle a little farther as they start to do good. And if you plan for success, because trust me, that's you can learn as much in success as you can failure. Like if you plan for it, then you can move from the needle from 5 to 15 million to 15 to 65 million. Like you could move that fairly quickly with good online tools, and you could become a decent player in that space. But you begin to soak up a lot of the pie, if you will. You begin to soak up a lot of the sheds that are being sold in your region. But the barrier to entry that's really hard is for like dealers. A lot of times who are working on consignment, who are like, I want to do marketing. I want to do my own marketing if that's what it takes, but I need to know how. And that's what selling sheds online to me really helped out, was the person who was like, I can't afford to invest in what's necessary, but I'm somewhere in between. And then of course there's the whole side of like getting companies to commit to it. Knowing that you have companies out there selling 10 million that don't have a website, you're like, gosh, I'm not trying to be like, whatever, guys, but you could be selling 20 million tomorrow.
Nobody knows you're here. There's nowhere to click. There's, you can't rely on drive-bys anymore. I mean, there's a whole culture out here that is used to point, click, and buy.
Yeah.
And you need to be set up for that. I mean, it's a harsh reality, but that's just the way it is.
When your business depends on getting materials fast, you can't afford to wait around. At Three Oaks Trading Company, we get it. Your production schedule moves fast, and so do we. From studs, SPF, and SYP, to all your panels, siding, and flooring. Square edge or tongue and groove, OSB or plywood, we're stocked, ready, and delivering across the U.S., often in just 3 to 5 business days. Our team specializes in serving shed builders and manufacturers, providing the products you need when you need them. Because your next build shouldn't be waiting on a delivery truck. So if you're ready for reliable service, quick turnaround, and a partner who understands your business, reach out to Three Oaks Trading Company today. Call 833-214-1723 or visit threeoakstradingco.com to get started. Three Oaks Trading Company. Fast, dependable, built for builders.
Well, you're really going back to your roots in terms of like focusing on your development, software development, and things like this. This seems to be like still doing marketing, of course, but and like, hey, call him. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, I'll be transparent for a second. So we were the first ones to come out with Shed CRM, which I've since renamed. But Shed CRM is a white label version of a piece of software called High Level, Go High Level. It's a CRM system that's built around agencies, and they have a reseller model. I believe Shed Suite uses it for their marketing platform. Probably several others. Oh, there's that door chime again.
Yeah, somebody is.
Your phone's blowing up.
I guess I'm going to turn it off. How about that? Okay.
But anyway, so one of the things that I kind of focused on as I started getting back into software is like, how can I look at a situation and make it 1% better? I mean, and that's kind of how we came out with the voice AI. We were one of the first ones to actually put it in play, because it's like, okay, well, wait a minute. I have all of this knowledge that we've built over 5 years of working with dozens of shed companies, right? So I have this knowledge. I understand LP Smart Side. I understand, the paints. I understand the materials. We understand, the 3D builders. We understand the industry, right? So it's like, how can I make this 1% better? How can I make an AI smart enough to actually hold a conversation with somebody, asking questions that a normal person would do? Well, the only way you can do that is going back to data. Like you've got to find the data. You've got to go back and you've got to look at the questions you get in your inbox. Look at the questions you get online through Messenger if you're marketing on Marketplace or whatever. I mean, you've probably got a wealth of knowledge right there that can be structured and placed into an AI and can answer probably 80% of the phone calls that you get. That's one. I mean, that's one super easy implementation of development. But it all starts with that, how can I make this 1% better, right? Like how can I do this? And so, like, for instance, High Level didn't have native voice AI until just about a month or two ago, right? I mean, they did, but it was in beta. It was kind of crazy. But outbound voice AI, we were able to actually get that going well over a year ago. So at this point, now that it's been integrated into some of the software tools we use, we still use our own solution because it's so much better trained. Like, it's the training and it's the constant updating and things like that. That's really where it's knowledge management, I think, is really where things are going. It's this knowledge management. A lot of times companies will have, they'll have a gold mine in their inbox and not even know it.
Happens, I would say, more often than not. I'm thinking about your book when you talked about how email marketing's not dead. Just thinking back, I mean, like, email marketing's worked really good for us. A lot of you guys hear me say, sign up for our newsletter. If I just walk you through the mindset there, is like, you sign up for the newsletter, we put out content on there, whether it's a description of today's show, clickable links where you can go and click on and fill out these lead forms for companies that you want an interest in. So, of course you can call them up directly, but now the lead attribution is not able to be correctly assessed. And you're like, what does that mean? That sounds Spanish. All I mean is, we don't get the credit from ShedGeek when we sell advertising, unless you go to ShedGeek. And then, I've had people tell me recently, you should just do podcasting and not do, you'll like this. And I'm a bit unhinged today, so I'll just say it. But, I've had people say you should just do the podcast and not do these other deals, whether it's rent-own or marketing or finance. And I was like, okay, how do I make money? And they're like, that's not my problem. And I'm like, right.
Okay. But yeah, I can't eat your problems. So that's the thing, right? I get it. 100%.
Unless everybody wants to start paying, which they probably don't, $20 a month to listen to this podcast, right? They're like, no, I don't want to do that. It's free. And it's like, right. But if you get benefit from it, from people who come on, talk about services, or you end up using them, if I don't either sell them advertising or charge you, the magic pill doesn't exist. It's not reality. It all costs money, and then you got to make money, and then there's power plays, and then there's just all this garbage that goes along with it. You talked about value prop and how you try to do the right things. So yeah, unless a big portion of you guys call in and say, hey, we'll pay every month, then you know what? We got to keep doing what we do to put out content, make money, and then talk about these things like marketing. I mean, I'm on here as transparent as I can, saying I'm not a rent-own guy, I'm not a marketing guy, I'm not a finance guy, I'm a podcast guy, I'm a help people guy. Hopefully, that's what we try to do. So how can we do that and make a living? But yeah. I don't know. Anyway, I have to do my rant, and then you can move back to what you were saying that was important.
That's okay. Something in your rant got me thinking, though. You talked about being having integrity and being, just upfront and open about things. And I got to tell you, authenticity is one of the things that we're losing in the day of AI. I mean, I post on my stories on Facebook and Instagram. I post AI videos all the time. People love them and they laugh at them, and it's silly, stupid stuff. But in reality, people are losing that connection, and it's getting to the point now where you really don't know what is AI and what is not. It's getting really scary good. So I guess my only advice, and it ties marketing and AI and all of that together, is authenticity. One of the strategies that we use with AI, and I'll just throw it out here on the podcast because I'm open like that, but is that we actually build an AI for every client we bring in. So we build an AI model for them, and we do that by taking and doing a deep research on the company itself. So we will actually go out and figure out when they were founded, who they were founded by, how many buildings a year do they build, how, what materials do they use. We will build a dossier on everything we can possibly put together for the company. We send that to the client. They will make whatever edits they need. And then we have an interview with the client where we talk to them about, our intake form. If you are a former client, you probably hated the intake process because it's 2 to 3 hours long. But we go through so many detailed questions that by the end of that, we have a recorded interview that we can use to, again, further train the AI. But we can also extract like who is your ideal customer? Like there are people out there that niche down, right?
Yes.
There are people out there that only sell buildings to commercial clients, or there are people that only, well, you know, they've got people that just haul buildings. You've got
Right.
I mean, there's so many different niches within the industry that when you combine the power of your niche with the knowledge of your company and then a profile of your ideal buyer, that's when AI becomes really well trained and able to literally speak your language to your customers in the language they want to hear from you.
You don't just target at that point specific people. You retarget based off of demographic, based off of age, based off of gender, based off of income. AI is able to process a lot of information. I mean, even Google, you know, we do that now in terms of like marketing and retargeting and things like that, and trying to create clones and all these different things. And I've learned so much over, you know, that probably the last 5 to 6 years because of folks like yourself, reading books like, you know, the things you put out, listening to you as you talk, watching your Facebook post, and trying to navigate, you know, myself through this. And it's at some point people are like, I use the word fragmentation a lot because we do niche down, but the fragmentation is why I think that there's opportunity for mergers and acquisitions that are happening at lightning speed. I feel like in the industry, because people are like, it's easier to not try to convince them. It's easier to not try to buy them. You know, if you're an RTO provider, it's easier to buy a company than it is to have a third party come in and pull them because it's so competitive. I can only imagine in the POS, 3D world, all that stuff, highly competitive as well. Marketing, you know, just the tech space in general for those who are embracing it. But then for those who aren't, it's kind of like this clean slate. You really have this like Cain and Abel. I mean, you have this entirely different personality from one to the next.
Yeah.
Of like, we embrace, we do this, we don't. These people are going to buy all. But at the end of the day, shed sellers like to sell sheds. They want leads, and my best advice is keep your inbox full. Keep your leads full. If your lead funnel's full and you got 100 on the hook, you're only going to sell 10 probably. But you know what? If you got 10 on the hook, you're probably not going to sell all 10. So you've got to have those leads. That's my best piece of advice, I think, personally. It happens so soft.
Like I said, I think it just goes back to authenticity. Sorry. It goes back to authenticity because, you know, when you're out there, if you do AI generated content, people generally are going to see through it. If you've got a really well-trained AI on your brand voice, your values, your culture, like for instance, you know, I can tell you that there are certain phrases that certain clients of ours just try to avoid. You know, we were talking earlier. You said that some in the plane community don't like to use the word Amish. You know, I mean,
right.
That's a keyword that somebody's searching for. So, you know, there has to be sort of a little bit of a trade-off, but there's definitely ways that you can use AI in the process. There is also different ways that you can use AI that go above and beyond this consumer stuff that we're talking about, like your chat GPTs and your content generation and things like that. I mean, you can use AI you can actually plug in data from, say, if you Shed Suite or something like that, where you plug in the data of your delivered buildings, and you can actually look and have AI analyze patterns, and you can figure out, hey, you know what? I've sold 6 buildings near here, and this is a residential neighborhood that's all single-family homes. There's no renters allowed. Why aren't I marketing more in this area?
Yeah.
Right. Or you know what? I wasted 20% of my ad budget on this area of town that's nothing but apartment complexes, right? So why would you do that? Like it enables you to, if you actually think strategically about your business, what AI does is it's a time multiplier. I think is the best way to put it. It's just a time multiplier. You can have AI analyze large amounts of information almost instantaneously.
Introducing the Challenger, the revolutionary new shed mover that's taking the industry by storm. The Challenger features a touchless design, ensuring it only makes contact at the end of the skids and the bottom of the floor joists, so rest easy knowing your gable walls will remain pristine. Worried about reliability? Fear not, the Challenger is always up for the challenge and will not overturn or scuff your shed. Harness the power of innovative wireless technology. Remotely control the Challenger via your smartphone no cell service needed. And guess what? The cell phone remote comes standard with every Challenger at no extra cost. Featuring floating forks, a 4-directional tilting mast, and sliding weight transfer, move the shed weight precisely where you need it to get ultimate traction. With self-loading capability, straight onto your truck, say goodbye to the need for a hydraulic carriage. The Challenger makes your job easy and more efficient. Choose from 2 machine sizes, 10,000 pounds and 15,000 pounds. Perfect for any job. Visit www.shedchallenger.com or email us at info@shedchallenger.com or call or text 828-220-3508 for more information. Experience the future of shed moving with the Challenger.
I love the phrase time multiplier. That's really good because with technology, you can, it's like anything else. You can use it for good or bad, right?
Yeah,
already
absolutely.
referenced Cain and Abel. You hear that brought up a lot of times in like Second Amendment debates and stuff like that, right? It's like it's the heart that is the problem, but it's the same thing with technology. I mean, like you can use it for good or bad, and like I do think that's just like those that are trying to use it for good, is what you hope win. You can use anything for whatever and be concerned about it. But AI has been like, even though it's new, it has been very beneficial in helping people through their health issues. It's been very beneficial in helping people through.
I can attest to the health part. I can attest to that personally. So I can, but I will tell you that the real thing is that it's just like with any other marketing tactic or any other business tactic for real. There's no shortcuts, right? So you have to put in the time. You have to understand the tools. You have to do it. You can't. I mean, to think that you can pay $67 a month for some rogue piece of software and it just handles everything for you, that's great in a fantasy world, but that's not. You're probably going to end up getting disappointed. And a lot of these small, inexpensive software as a service type things, I mean, they account for that. They account for the fact that their churn is about every 3 months they lose a client, so through a customer. So they've constantly got to be getting people through. And then if they're not innovating, then the platform gets old. A new competitor is going to come take place. So that's part of AI without the hype, kind of helps you identify who might be. Like if they're selling the sizzle and not the steak, you probably want to go ahead and pass on that piece of software or whatever.
And for many that just want to sell sheds, want to haul sheds, want to just build sheds, they don't want to be caught up into, that is part of business, and there is a very old school way of doing business. You can still set some sheds out by the road, get some people to come in, maybe even fill out a paper contract. Nothing wrong with it. Just saying for those who are taking market share, they're investing into the future, which includes your digital, basically landscape, and the question becomes, if I just want to sell sheds, Jim, I just want to build sheds, I just want to like haul sheds or whatever it is, where does the rubber meet the road for them in like agency or like hiring an agency or like hiring somebody to take care of the stuff or trying to put all the broken pieces together? What's the answer?
I mean, the biggest thing when somebody comes to me, I mean, the first questions I ask, are generally some qualifying questions. I ask about how many buildings you sell. That just gives me and what's your average selling price. That just gives me an idea of where you are currently at. And then I ask you, what your goals are, right? Where is it that okay, if you were to hire my agency and we were to have this conversation again in 6 months, what would a successful engagement look like? And then we use that to set our target. And sometimes it's just not possible. I mean, I'm not going to. I mean, if you're just starting out and you've sold 5 buildings so far and you got a brand new shed lot, you're not going to be at $10 million next year. I mean, I'm not saying you won't be, but I'm just saying the chances of you being at $10 million by next year are pretty slim, right? So it's really a matter of knowing where you're starting and knowing the important pieces to put into place in the right order in order to get you there at the least expensive. I mean, I really am a big fan of local visibility, and that bleeds over into AI because a lot of people go to AI and they'll ask for this, but there's actually statistics that show, I can't quote you the exact source, maybe I'll get it for you for the footnotes of the podcast, but there are actually studies out there that show that people will go to AI and ask for a recommendation. So now that's opened up this whole industry of AI search optimization or GEO or AIO or whatever acronym they want to put on it.
Happened to us at the last Shed Show. I think I talked about it in an earlier podcast. We went to Mooyah. We met the guys from Eagleville that are selling Protect trailers, utility trailers, getting into the shed lots. We go there. We get us a Mooyah burger and a drink, and ask the guy, where would you get? Because we do this all the time everywhere we go. Where would you go find a shed? If you were looking for a storage shed, where would you go? Obviously, the answer that you get 95% of the time, Lowe's, Home Depot, right? But then you go beyond that, and it's like, yeah, but what if I wanted to like support someone local or something? And he's like, I don't know. Let me AI it. I don't know. Let me chat it. And you're just like, whoa, I didn't hear let me Google it. I heard let me AI it for the first time.
People are starting to do that. I mean, and the different AI engines do things a little bit differently. Obviously, ChatGPT is being, the first to the market, and they're one of the big players. Perplexity is one that I personally use. I've actually replaced Google with Perplexity for most searches, unless I'm specifically searching for a business that I know I want Google Maps to come up. But if I'm just doing research, I generally use Perplexity now. But
Claude, are you a fan of Claude?
I love Claude. Yeah. I use Claude, and as a matter of fact, in a lot of the software that we build now, Anthropic API is in the back end of it. I like Anthropic more than OpenAI from just the back end point, the number of tokens it uses, the efficiency at which it comes out. The fact that Claude will eliminate the M dash. Do you know what an M dash is?
I don't.
It's that little long dash that's instead of a hyphen, it's the long dash that connects two words.
Course.
Yeah. Well, it's overused in ChatGPT output. So
yes,
that's one of the things. That's one of the things that you can
sense.
Almost always recognize AI content because of that stupid M dash. But now I've lost my train of thought.
No, that's really good because that is the a lot of times the deciding factor. Obviously, I think when you see a social media post, for the most part, it's pretty like distinguishable most of the time between that and like an organic. Even Google bought like Reddit, right, or whatever, to like consume like actual information, because I think we do crave real thoughts and feelings from people, and even when they write them in a book, that they're not perfect because it's a real thought, it's a real person. That's why I've always said, like, people ask me like, what are all the questions you're going to ask me? What should I write down on the podcast? I'm like, what we should do is have a real conversation.
I was about to say, am I doing this wrong? Because I just told you come in and we'll chat.
You did this perfect, because this is what I prefer is to have the real conversation on the microphone. I'm always quoted as saying the best podcast will happen off air, because we'll never be able to capture them with a mic.
Well,
we'd have to follow someone 24 hours a day, but yeah, it's.
I can tell you and I have had conversations that I wish we were recording. So
for sure, it would offer value to the listener, and but I'd have to have somebody 24/7 following us around just to like get some of this. And you try to capture some of that lightning in a bottle by putting it on behind a microphone. But then you got to develop your thoughts, and you're like, what should I wear? How should I look? All these things. These are things that are like real, even when you think about owning a sales lot. How should the appearance of me look? How should the appearance of my lot look? Because this is something that's ingrained into us naturally. The one thing that people take away from it is the more like real and organic. So a healthy mix seems to make sense, but who cares if it's AI generated? It's clean.
Well, the best use of AI is going to be in the background, like in meetings. So I've got some AI tools that we use internally. So if I get on a call with a new client and I've had at least a couple of hours to prepare, I probably have a dossier on that potential client already, and I already know what there is about them. Like AI supercharges that kind of research, right? Finding things out. But the big thing, like going back to AI search, I remembered my train of thought now.
Okay.
The big thing going back to AI search is that there's statistics that actually show that people will go out and search on AI, but then they go out to Google to check. They go back and they double check the results. So I'd be curious to see how many people, that are listening to the podcast actually do that. They'll go out and they'll ask AI, hey, who's the best shed dealer in town, or where can I go to have my shed moved, or whatever. And AI is going to spit out a couple of results. So then you start going and you start Googling search engine names. So that makes it tough for a marketing agency, because a marketing agency can't quantify that.
Right.
So if I'm tracking just pure metrics, right, and I'm not paying attention to all of the details, because it's impossible to report on, first of all. So I have to actually look at I can kind of see what type of brand searches are being done in AI, and I can kind of estimate that. But then what I have to actually look at is I have to look for an uptick in Google searches for my name. Like, for instance, when you get AI recommendations and people go out to Google and they search for you, they're searching for you. So you're going to see an uptick in brand related searches coming to your site. That's one of the ways that you know that it's working. There's not a direct attribution. There will be, I'm sure, before too long. But as of right now, there's no direct attribution from an AI search to somebody walking on your lot or picking up the phone call, or whatever.
Attribution, data, those words start to become the things that move the needle. If it sounds like we're talking Mandarin or Spanish or some foreign language here, just know for the plain community, this is what it sounds like when you guys speak in Dutch. We have no idea what you're saying. We have no idea what you're saying. But how do you bring that down as we start to wrap up? How do we bring that down, those thoughts down, to the shed seller, the shed manufacturer, who's like, look, I don't need to know all the details of this, Mr. Mosier. I just need to know, how does it work for me? What does it cost? Things like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and the cost is relative. I mean, again, you can buy a copy of Selling Sheds online. I think it's on Amazon for $18. You can buy a copy for that, and you can establish a Google business profile. You can establish directory listings out there. You can give yourself a foundation of local search. Now, I will tell you, where the agency value proposition comes into play is, yes, you can do all of this work yourself, and yes, I've given you the roadmap to do so, but I can probably take that 3-month process that it would take you, and I can do it in 2 weeks.
Right.
So that's the agency proposition.
Yeah.
We have the tools, we have the software. I mean, just like, people who build sheds have Shed Suite, or they have some sort of ERP software. Well, we have an operating system inside of our own agency as well. And just as Shed Suite supports you building and manufacturing sheds and selling them and all of that, our stuff, our software actually monitors local results. It helps get the name, address, and phone number. That's one of the biggest things that people, and it still is an issue even 5 years after writing Selling Sheds Online. Name, address, and phone number are 3 biggies. As far as if it doesn't match, then
Right.
You've got all this fragmented stuff out there. But having it consistent, it's a powerhouse. Everything sends a signal, right? Everything sends a signal. Your social media now, it comes into play. That I actually, not too long ago on my Facebook timeline, I actually published Google's patent that shows why it takes 90 days for any kind of search engine optimization to take hold. And it's not just because it's marketing agencies saying we need 90 days to show you results. There's actually a patent that Google has that when you post something and they index it in their index, it's 70 days minimum before it finds its place in its actual ranking. And until then, it's up, it's down, it's up, it's down, and it's going to fluctuate. So if you're focused on that first 30 days, you're probably going to have a drink, because
This
it's going to
happens
be
in the industry all the
place.
time.
Yeah.
Happens all the time. Which obviously SEO, one of the hardest things to sell, because you've got to, at least in my opinion, because you've got to convince people of something that they don't understand, that it's going to take minimum this long. So it's an investment. This isn't a quick fix. And I think oftentimes you were talking about customer acquisition earlier, and like how much longer it is to do this and to do that with customer acquisition, getting started, that 2 to 3 hour process, even in the beginning, that's necessary if we want to do a good job. Mm-hmm. We don't want to find out later that, you're trying to move a totally different direction than what we were trying to take you, because we didn't uncover the right information. This is sales. You're doing all that in the customer acquisition side to get their information to learn so you can serve them better. And there's just a mixture. You've got to uncover, ask it's It's a thought that deserves a 5-hour podcast for those who are interested. It deserves 5 minutes for those who don't care.
Yeah.
Right. They just really are like, I don't know, or tell me more. What's your best piece of advice to those in the shed industry right now? Just having your knowledge of the way that everything works, has come together, what we're seeing today, tech, non-tech. Just kind of give us your magic 8 ball, and I'll be quiet. Hello, shed sellers. Let's take a moment to discuss the shed customer and meeting their expectations. I remember growing up in the neighborhood where a certain percentage of the houses had well-manicured lawns and well-manicured homes. These were the type of individuals who felt it was important to purchase a well-constructed home or vehicle, or maybe equipment to help maintain the quality of the item. As shed manufacturers, we seek to provide a well-built quality shed. We want the customer to feel satisfied that their hard-earned money has been well spent on a product that will last. At LuxGuard, we believe adding high-quality rubber flooring to your line of sheds makes sense to the customer and adds value the customer can appreciate. With each year, sheds are becoming more complex. The customizations we are seeing are virtually endless. LuxGuard not only gives a complimentary aesthetic appearance for their shed, but also protects the floor from spills and keeps cleanup simple. Offer your customer the customer service they seek with LuxGuard. At LuxGuard, we are committed to delivering exceptional customer service and innovative products to help our customers achieve their goals. We strive to meet the evolving needs of the customers. To speak with one of our ready-to-serve customer product specialists, simply call 336-468-4311. To see our product and view an installation video, just visit our website at luxguard.com. LuxGuard, the floor that lasts a lifetime.
My magic 8 ball is probably going to sound a little backwards considering I'm a marketing person, but my magic 8 ball is the thing that I would recommend every customer or every shed seller do is focus on that customer experience. Focus on the customer. What happens when they visit your website and fill out a form? What happens? How do they interact if you have live chat? How are you following up with them after they fill out that form and become a customer, or after they go into your 3D builder and they build their building and they submit it for a quote? What happens after that process, and how can you make a 1% improvement in that? How can you make it 1% better? If you just focus on the 1%, eventually you're going to run out of 1%, and you're going to turn around and you're going to be like, wow, it's been 6 months, but look at where I was and look at where I am. And those are the stories that we like to tell. Those are the stories that we like to do. But there's a process, as with anything. I mean, you don't go to the gym and start working out, and the next thing you know, a week later you're swole. I mean, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Same thing holds true. There's a lot of boring, repetitive work that has to go into, marketing and making sure those foundations are right. And, my advice would be focus on that customer experience and then figure out what boring work you need to do just to make it 1% better.
Shout outs in the industry. Anybody you want to shout out? Any co-working space there, the people that have just been super to work with? You don't have to, but if you got any kudos you want to give.
I feel really bad because I did want to introduce you to somebody while you were in town. A good friend of mine, Larry Wood. I think I've talked to you about him.
Yes.
He's now podcast famous, I guess, but he owns a company here called Sheds for Less. He got a bunch of different lots. I don't know how many he has these days. Very, very good guy. I would have loved for you to be able to meet him when you're here, but we're just going to have to get you back.
Peter Miller said the same thing. We actually went to, for any of you that have come to Lakeland or know anything about it, we went to this nice little restaurant next to your office called 1961. And as we're eating there, he's telling me about Larry Wood. And I'm like, Jim's telling me about Larry Wood. And he's like, yeah, I actually met with Larry here at 1961. I'm like, well, Jim was going to eat it with us at 1961 today. And he's like, his office is next door. And it's funny how networking happens when you just begin to cast the net and get out there, whether it's get in your truck, go down, do some interviews. We've been staying home a lot lately because our grandbabies and things like that. But we want to see more of you, shed industry, and I've got to tell you, I still get a lot of love from the shed industry, even though it's not. I don't market to shed industry the way that I did when we had Shed Marketer. I folded Shed Marketer into our bigger agency only because, and I told you this,
quietly last night at dinner, but I'll go ahead and say it on the podcast. You know, it became a race to the bottom. There were so many marketing agencies. Like you joked around that there was 50. I probably need both hands to count the number that were there. I mean, I'm not joking in that. So I don't like to participate. So I just decided to step into what's next. And what's next is, I believe, is going to be custom software and AI. And you know, by custom software, again, I'm not dogging these vibe coding things and the AI generated software, but I'm going to tell you, you really do need to have a software engineer look at it before you actually think you have something. Otherwise, you could wind up with a big mess on your hands. One of my larger clients here locally is an insurance agent, and the number of cyber claims has gone up. And people don't realize if you're a business owner and you're going out and say, okay, well, I want to create this nifty tool, and then I'm going to put it out there on my website. You know, it could have. I mean, I've seen everything from somebody waking up to a $2,000 OpenAI API bill because they had a key that was exposed that some bad actor got a hold of and went out and charged up a whole bunch of stuff. And there's nothing you can do but pay it. Like, so that's. You know,
you got to be careful.
Yeah, you got to be careful.
I mean, you got to be careful, and it's tough whenever you're talking about things that people don't understand on the level that you do. It's like you speaking about the jigs that are in your you know, your bays for building sheds, and people are like, "What are you talking about here?" And you know your craft, and when you know your craft, you don't want to see somebody like partially do your craft, but do a better job of marketing it.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, it's not any different than it's ever been. I mean, you know, you've always you've always had web agencies that build websites and do marketing, but then you've always had Wix and Weebly and those do-it-yourself things, right? Yeah. So now we have these people that are vibe coding, and we have AI that's kind of like do-it-yourself and things like that. But to really build that into a tool that integrates into a workflow, I mean, like every business has its own pulse. It has its own way of operating and doing things. And sometimes off-the-shelf software can be like putting a square peg in a round hole. You know, you have to change the way you work to adapt to the software. Where I see the future is the opposite, because you can then adapt the software to the way you work. Then whatever efficiencies you've already built into your process get magnified, right? Mm-hmm. And the other thing about it is that a lot of people don't think about it. There's at least there used to be. I'm not an accountant, so I'll say that straight out. But there used to be R&D tax credits you could claim. So the cost of building a custom software system for your business is completely tax deductible, or at least it used to be. Or amortized over time, I think is probably the better way to describe it. Again, not an accountant, so don't quote me on that. But the other thing is if you ever do sell your business, that software becomes a legitimate business asset that's actually worth money and will increase the value, because when you know, it's one thing to have a business, but it's another to have a business that has proprietary components that somebody would find valuable. And that's just a little nugget drop I'll leave there.
No, I love it. These are the things that people get whenever they speak with you and consult with you. Gosh, I would maybe we have to cut this out. I'd love to have you on as a SG consultant to help these people out. There's so many people who need these this advice, and they're willing to pay for it when it saves them money, not costs them money, and that's what an investment is. Right. It ultimately saves you money. But you've got your own thing going. But hey, I'm always open over here because I love your knowledge, and you can turn that knowledge into help for people. And you know what? That should cost something, but ultimately saves them in the end. But
yeah, well, you know, I feel like if I can provide value, it's all going to work out in the end. I mean, it's kind of like I believe you've had John Feely on your podcast from the Shed Academy. Yeah. So recently, I sat down with him inside of his Shed Lab private mastermind group, and I shared some things, and I built them a custom AI for his people in his program and things like that. And I just just do that stuff because I love to do it, and B, somewhere, somehow, some way, the dots might connect in the future. And if they do, that's cool. And if they don't, that's cool. I mean, I'm out time. That's,
Drove up there to Long Island, met with John, still talk to him fairly regularly. Great guy. Love the program that he's built, and I think he said on the podcast, I feel like I'm a bit of an outsider because I'm teaching people how to build sheds instead of like being a shed builder or whatever. And I said, no, you're, and some of the guys that went through your class have went on to become very successful and players in the industry. So
we actually got connected with John through a gentleman that he came on board, and he came on board as a client of ours, and we took it on honestly as an experiment because it was a little outside of his price range, I guess, if you would say, to work with us as an agency, but I was like, I want to see if I can move the dial for this guy, right? And it's like, I love a challenge. So, it was his lucky day, I guess. But anyway, long story short, he was a member of John's program, and that led to a couple of referrals. And then I wind up on the call with John himself, and he's like, hey, I've got these plans. I'm redoing this program, which he did just release a new version of his program. So anybody that might be interested, shameless plug for him.
Absolutely. Love John. Like to support him in any way that we can. So, yeah, I love what he does.
So,
well, I'll tell you what, it's been interesting. It's been thoughtful. I hope it hasn't sounded like gibberish to the
90% of the people, yeah.
But it really is the direction that I feel like not just the industry's going. I like to always say we're not agnostic from what happens in the world just because we're in sheds, or maybe even because we have a large portion of plane community or plane community. The world decides to shop and buy the way it decides to. And I know sometimes we're called to be separate from the world if we talk about our faith, but the reality is like the world's not going to change based off of our culture, right? Or like what we're doing. They're going to continue to shop the way they do. I was thinking about Instagram and Snapchat turning into basically Google in some cases, for like the younger generation, because that's how they find places to eat. That's how they find places to shop. A lot of times they're not Googling it. They're and all these just recommendations from referrals from their friends and these different networks on social media and like all the tools that we have that's available to be able to connect. It really is an interesting world, and you got to ask yourself, well, how does that affect me in sheds? I'm just some guy who builds sheds, sells sheds, and it really does. But it's a very high level conversation. But people like Jim are the ones who help make sense of it, and they put it into English. So how do people reach you? We want to show love to Mosier Data however we can.
Oh, I appreciate it.
Reach out to you.
MosierData.com. That's spelled MosierData.com. And our local phone number here is area code 863-687-0000. But yeah, reach out. Even if it's just to have a conversation, I'm great with conversations, and I love having them. And there's not ever going to be any pressure from this side. If you decide it's a fit and we work together, cool. If I'm just help you out, give you some advice, that's cool too. Hopefully somewhere in the future, we'll paths meet again. It's
been nice knowing you for 5 years now, and just seeing your success, and awesome and happy for you. Finally glad I got to come down here to Lakeland, and actually I see you on Facebook all the time talking about your experiences here in Lakeland, how you're involved in the business community and all that. And I think a lot of you, I wish you nothing but luck and well wishes in the future. And hopefully we'll talk again. Maybe we can give people a round 2 or something.
Okay, that sounds like a great plan.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you, Jim. Thanks again, Shed Pro, for being the Shed Geeks studio sponsor. If you need any more information about Shed Pro or about Shed Geek, just reach out. You can reach us by email at info@shedgeek.com, or just go to our website, www.shedgeek.com, and submit a form with your information, and we'll be in contact right away. Thank you again for listening, as always, to today's episode of the Shed Geek Podcast. Thank you, and have a blessed day.